Hi gang, Rob here. It is the evening of 23 June 2013 and I've had quite a weekend. It's been a Benchmade sharpening weekend. One of my YouTube buddies, and a great channel by the way, if you like outdoor stuff and gear, Outdoorinitiative, sent me a message on YouTube, I guess a week and a half ago or so, asking if I wouldn't mind sharpening some knives for him, and of course I told him I would. And about a week later he sent me another message telling me that there were 4 knives getting ready to go into the mail, heading my way, and well, he sent me 4 knives and a little more money than I usually charge. So not only did I sharpen these knives, I sort of sent them to the spa, or brought them into the spa, you could say. And I've never really worked on 4 Benchmades at one time. They're all Axis Lock models, and after spending several hours with a few variants of that mechanism, I just had some things I wanted to share with you. So let's see what we got here. Here in the upper right, in the beautiful Benchmade pouch, we have a full-size Griptilian, model 551, with tan handle, old-school Parkerized clip, and a DLC-coated blade of S30V, one of those nice little sprint run Griptilians. And this one, as you can see, is not extremely free. And we're going to get into why that is. Some things I've long suspected about Benchmade that I sort of confirmed in this project. Let's see, look at that edge, boys. Both of the Griptilians, yeah, I have another one here. Got my standard treatment, the 15-degree secondary bevel per side and 20-degree micro bevel. Let's see what's next. Oh, what do we have here? We have a triage, an N690 combo edge, partially serrated. This also got the same edge as the Griptilians. Didn't have to touch the rescue cutter. It has never seen any action from what I can tell, and it's still extremely sharp. Moving right along. Oh, did you notice anything? Yeah, the clip on the triage is set up for left-hand carry. That means it spent the day in my pocket. Now we have a 550HG Griptilian hollow ground blade from 154 cm, combo edge as well, and my standard edge. Last but not least, Benchmade 275 Adamas folder. I don't know if all 4 of these blades are going to get as much attention at the reviewing table as the Adamas. There's a lot to talk about this knife. We're going to do its own review. But anyhow, let's let's take a look at some things. Oh yeah, that one's set up for left-hand carry too. That's tomorrow's EDC at 8 ounces. Okay, if you notice, 2 of these blades, the triage and the tan with black S30V Griptilian. Now, both of these knives are set up as loose as possible to be without side-to-side play. They both have polished washers, polished blade tangs, and polished liners. There are no burrs, nothing. But both of these blades, in order to have no blade play, Now the triage is a little better than the grip. But both of these blades are a little sticky. And they both have no blade play, but I can't make them any looser. This grip is very free. I don't know if you can really detect that, but much freer than either one of those two black coated blades. I've had this experience before with one knife. It was a 950 Rift. Apparently it's pretty pervasive. Even the Adamas had some of this. I was able to alleviate it. But what I see is that in the pivot action of these Benchmade knives, the DLC coating impedes their it impedes their smoothness. It impedes the ability of the blade to be able to freely swing when the lock is disengaged. Why? I don't know. It's not very slippery, we know that. I think it also, I don't think the thickness is very consistent, because it's like there's a flatness issue or a parallelism issue with these knives. I think the triage is the one I can really show you the best. See, it drops freely, and then it gets to here, and it's sticky. I actually had my buddy send his Rift in for rework when this happened, and Benchmade polished about the diameter of a washer on the blade tang to help it. I don't think they did a very good job, because it wasn't much better. But my point in saying all this is that if you're looking for an Axis Lock knife and you really like it to be a very free operating knife, if you like it to be super smooth, unless the steel dictates that you get a coated blade, or you just like the looks of it and you're willing to sacrifice some smoothness, don't do it. The satin bladed blades work much better with this Axis Lock mechanism, just my opinion. Here's another issue. This was really prevalent on the Adamas. If you'll notice, I'm going to come in tight here, the ramp surface that the lock bar engages on this Adamas has been polished. I removed almost all the coating. There's still a little bit up at the top that's still there, but the lock bar will never contact that. When I got this knife in for sharpening, the very back of that tang was bare, but I'm going to use the if I can. When we got to about here, black coating in a big glob, like it was bunched up like a rug. It was horrible, and the lock bar would not engage properly, and this big beefy tactical folder had a bunch of up and down play unless you push the lock bar that direction to fully engage it. I removed the black coating from that tang area on all three of the blades on the table that are coated. It's just a horrible idea to have that there. The lock bar will wear it off, and it's going to push it up into a ball. Not a good idea. Just some tips for those of you who have Benchmades with coated blades. Now, here's the other thing. I know Benchmade sharpens knives for free for life. They call it their Life Sharp policy or program. If you buy a Benchmade knife, you pay the postage, you send it to them, they will sharpen it. Yeah, that's true. And I don't know if the same guys sharpening knives under the Life Sharp program are the ones that sharpen them on the production line, but if they are, you're just wasting postage, guys. I've got 4 Benchmade knives here, all, let's say, are less than 2 years old. Let's walk through what I saw, and all these had factory edges that were used by Outdoor Initiative until they needed to be sharpened, and then he sent them to me. So let's walk through from really best to worst. This is the S30V Griptilian. This had the best edge of the bunch. I got a feeling it's one of the newer of these knives. Don't know that for sure, but it definitely had Benchmade's new geometry, new blade geometry. This is sharpened at a 15 degree per side, secondary bevel, and a 20 degree micro. And frankly, I didn't have to remove much material to get there. This edge was pretty darn consistent on both sides, just a few bad spots in it. And I would say this one, I didn't actually measure it or try to check it, but it was probably 18 and 22 when I started, so we didn't have far to go. And S30V takes a great edge. Makes you work for it, but it does. And this one came out great. And that's about where the good news ends. The Triage in N690 was also pretty symmetrical and even thinner. However, right in this area, right here, where the plain edge meets the serration, they really jacked up the edge. It took forever to get their bad sharpening job out of this area, and consequently I had to spend a lot of time on this blade for one bad spot. But first experience with N690, material is removed relatively easily and very keen edge. I'm not sure what I would compare this to steel-wise, but seems to have sharpening characteristics much like AUS 8. All in all, though, the serrations were very well done. A couple burrs I had to remove, but they sharpened up okay. And most of this plain edge was ground pretty well. Again, a pretty new knife, so I'm sure it had Benchmade's more recent improved edge geometry on it. Now let's talk about the not so good. This 550HG, although the hollow ground Griptilians are ground very thin behind the edge. I mean very thin. Maybe approaching 12 to 14 thousandths behind the edge. So symmetry or lack thereof is a little hard to detect, and really on this blade, and also it doesn't really mess you up too bad because there's just not that much material there. But I don't know if you can see, I was really unable to bring this tip to where I normally would without destroying the contour of this edge, but the tip was just really badly ground. Don't know if you can see it. It looks a lot better than it did. And 154 cm, pretty easy to sharpen. Takes a pretty good edge. Serrations on this knife were even better than the Triage. Just super crisp, no burrs. Backside was nicely polished. And again, a more modern Benchmade profile. Just it's like all these blades had one spot that made them difficult. So Benchmade is doing better than they have in the past, but they're still grinding sharpening angles that are just way too obtuse. The narrowest secondary bevel I found on any of these three knives was about 18 degrees in one spot. That's just not. It's not thin enough. It's not a shallow enough angle. Now we're going to get to the real trouble, and I've been wanting to get one of these guys in my hand. This is the Benchmade Adamas Folder, number 275, from a super thick, like 3/16 thick slab of D2 with full spine thickness for about half an inch down the blade. 7.7 ounces, and it's wow, what a heavy piece of steel. I mean, I'm telling you what, guys. But let's run down this blade and let me show you how it came. Now, you would expect with only about a half height flat grind 3/16 stock, wouldn't you'd expect this to be pretty steep angle, and it is. And I sharpened this with the 18 degrees per side secondary bevel and a 23 degrees per side micro, so 36 and 46 inclusive, which usually I'm doing 30 and 40. So I used a little wider angle than usual. But let me tell you where this thing came from. Okay, watch this. Just follow me here. Right side of the blade. At the base, on the right side of the blade, right here at the base, hard place to sharpen, by the way, 29 degrees. Right out here, right in this area, much better, down around 22. Right here at the belly, 20. Up here at the tip, oh my. Secondary bevel was 39 degrees. Now follow me to the other side real quick. The corresponding area, 28. Okay, now guys, let's do the math here. 39 and 28 is 67 degrees inclusive at the tip. 67 degrees. And it gets worse. The symmetry was atrocious. The right side of the blade, well, let's just say the point of this blade was offset 2/3 to 1/3 to the right. So this real steep angle over here was also really short. I mean, it was the ugliest knife tip I've ever seen. Horrible. Looked like I've seen Chinese gas station knives with better symmetry at the tip. A lot of them. I mean, it was horrible. Worst Benchmade I've ever seen. Okay, so we're 39 and then 28 at the tip on this side. Again, around 22. About 24 here, and about 24, 25 here. So really we had an angle grind range on this knife of 20 degrees from the shallowest to the steepest spot. I mean, come on, really? Now I understand in a hand sharpening operation, when you've got a knife that's pretty thick at the tip, in order to keep the width of that bevel pretty consistent, you might steepen up at the tip a little bit. But right here at the belly, we're like 42 degrees inclusive or so, and then an inch later, we're at 67. Oh, man, I mean, it was horrible. Just freaking horrible. But boy, does it look good now. I did have to, repair the lame, half as big as it needed to be sharpening notch. Guys, if you manufacturers are listening, if you're going to put a sharpening notch in a blade because you have this huge radius plunge grind, you gotta make the notch big enough so it gets to the flat, or you're not solving anything by putting the notch in. See how that edge is dead straight all the way to the back where it hits the notch? That's how it ought to be. That keeps you from putting a big concave spot with the other side of the stone right in this area. So we got a 36 and 46 inclusive edge grind on this D2. I got to tell you guys, the more D2 I work on, the more I love it. And I love it for this application. This hard use, really a purpose-built military folder. I love the fact that they coated it. I'm not a big coated blade fan, but in in a rough environment with lots of bad weather. Coated D2 is a great option. Super strong, takes a super keen edge, holds it well, tough enough, semi-stainless. And with this DLC coating, it's not going to rust on you, especially if you send it to me for a polished edge. Man, did this come out nice. And you know, even with a secondary bevel of 36 inclusive, I didn't end up with a super wide bevel out at the tip. It's of course wider than it is in the belly and the base, but it doesn't look bad at all. It looks great. We're going to do a comprehensive review on this knife. By the way, up and down play is gone. I did that same blade tang treatment I did on the other coated knives, and it pops right in, and there's no play in any direction. I challenge all you frame lock guys, Carter, if you're listening, if you're watching, I challenge all you frame lock guys to find me a high dollar $400-500 titanium frame lock that will take the kind of abuse that this knife will, because I'm pretty sure it doesn't exist. Although I guess if I were an operator deployed, I would probably want to be carrying a second set of Omega springs with me. So that's my Benchmade analysis at the sharpening and spa table for tonight. Get the coating off your critical surfaces, especially the tang of the blade where the axis lock bar rides. Do your best to polish underneath the washers to make that coating smooth and consistent. And enjoy your Benchmades, boys. And by the way, if anybody's got any experience with Life Sharp that's good or bad, you know, weigh in the comments, because I'd like to hear. I just, for me, I'd send them to a sharpener who knows what he's doing, because what comes out of their factory, it's kind of embarrassing for a high-quality knife. I'd be embarrassed if I sent them out. Anyhow, grace and peace, guys, and remember, the word is sharp.